helps people during challenging and difficult times in their lives recreate themselves so they are destined for success in whatever area in their lives they choose. She's the recipient of the Missouri State Teacher of the Week Award, as well as her own life challenges. She has been published in the Reader's Digest issue, Is the Reason Her Bless and Release Method Was Created. I read that totally wrong, didn't I? She's a recipient of the teacher, as well as her own life challenges, published in the Reader's Digest issue, Is the Reason Her Bless and Release Method Was Created. She's a member of the National Speakers Association. Please help me welcome owner of Motivation LLC, Melissa Whitmore, who will give us some tips on releasing office pressure value.
Do you guys remember Fred Flintstone? Yeah. As soon as that whistle blew, he was shouting, yabba dabba doo. So there's your tip. When somebody's yelling at you in the office, you go yabba dabba doo. I'm just kidding, but that reminded me of that when I found that ridiculous picture for my PowerPoint presentation. So what I want to do today is share with you an interesting story about the journey that I've been on with my own life, both personally and professionally, as well as give you some awesome tips that you can use on a dime. Does that sound good? Yes. How many people in this room have never, ever, ever had conflict in their lives? Wow. How many people in here could say that you've been in all sorts of situations that have been extremely stressful? All right, keep your hands up. How many people in this room would say that you've had an extremely stressful life outside of your profession? Okay, that's awesome. Not really, but it is. Because the tips that I'm going to give to you today, you will be able to use both professionally and personally. Does that sound good? Yes. When I was 5, I became deaf. So imagine this. I had hearing first. I had a serious childhood illness that burned the cilia on the inside of my ear. And the cilia are those little hairs that take the sound waves and take them up into your brain. So I was 5, lost my hearing. That was also the same point in time where people were learning how to read phonetically. So I could not hear the difference between B, D, V, C. Couldn't hear any of those differences. And it really impacted my ability to learn and to become educated. I had a speech pathologist because I was so freaked out that I lost my hearing. I had a lisp, I stuttered, I was pretty much a mess, and I was pretty much a person with very low self-esteem. What I learned in the course of becoming deaf is that I really quickly adapted to situations because back then, you weren't deaf, you were a little hard of hearing. Deaf, the word deaf, I'm not even sure it even existed back all those years ago. So I had struggles learning how to read, got moved to the Blackbird reading group. That was a real powerful statement for me. Blackbird reading group. They thought that by calling them different bird varieties, redbird, bluebird, yellowbird, and blackbird, that we wouldn't know the difference. We knew the difference. That was the low achieving group, the group that was having a lot of educational challenges, the group that was having a lot of difficulties. And I was one angry young woman. I did not like being in the Blackbird group. I thought I should be an eagle and go above the redbirds. So I struggled a lot in my education. I decided that I wanted to be in the redbird group, so that was my own personal goal. So I made sure that that happened. Did it happen right away? Of course not. But it did happen by the time I approached middle school, and I did graduate with honors in high school. I then told my parents, I want to go to college. Back then, women were supposed to stay home and make babies. They were not supposed to go to college. So, being the rebellious kid that I was, I told my father, you know what? I'm going to go to college anyway. So I worked myself through college. Went to the local state university, which was in Missouri, and did 2 majors in 4 years. Also graduated with honors, going to a very large university. How did I do that? Well, I became known as the geek because what I did is I went and sat in the front row, which is a big no-no, as anybody knows who's that age. Or I would sit close enough where I could do the lip reading and everything that the speech therapist had taught me in my grade school years. I was done stuttering, I was done with the lisp, and I was ready to empower myself. Got out of college, had a couple of children after I got married, one who had some unbelievable health challenges. When he was in high school, he kept passing out. So we took him to various doctors. One of the doctors even went so far to say that because I sent him to an academically challenged school, that I was putting pressure on my child and making him pass out. Nothing could have been further from the truth because my son chose to go to this school. So I did not feel like that was a very relevant thing. And let's just say I wasn't real sweet to him. So I went on and I kept telling my son, you're fine, you're healthy. I just know that whatever's wrong with you, we just have to figure it out. I just know that. And he kept saying to me, I know I'm dying. Have you ever had your child tell you they know that they're dying? That's a terrible thing for a mother to hear. So I kept at it, found out that he had a very curable heart disease. He had exceedingly low blood pressure, and so when he got strep, his blood pressure dropped. They put you on medication for a couple of years, and then you're fine. Went on to raise my daughter as well. There's about 4 years difference between my two children. My daughter was a competitive figure skater, loved figure skating, breathed figure skating, and I loathed the amount of money that it cost. So I kept working little odd jobs here and there to keep paying and paying and paying. And I never did understand how the coaches could really tell me, really? A pair of ice skates on a tiny little feet? $1,000? Are you serious? So I decided that I would learn how to figure skate. Rock star that I am. Let me just say, we never even passed a test. So one day I'm on the ice practicing my triple jumps.
Yeah.
And I'm in a crossover position, and I'm skating. Push out, crossover, push out, crossover. And my coach is watching. Very impressed. Pushed out, crossover. And unbeknownst to me, there was a young woman about 16 years of age who was skating behind me. I did not hear her. Remember, I'm deaf. So that's out of my hearing range. That's one of those high-pitched sounds. She comes, and as I'm in a crossover position, her blade locks into my back foot, and when she pulls it out, she flips me onto the back of my head, where I immediately became unconscious. Yes, it was not fun. I was rushed to the emergency room, and they did a quick little x-ray, and they said to my best friend at the time, it's just a bad concussion. And I remember coming to at that point in time going, oh, okay. She says to them, after I pass out again, no, 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 her head doesn't normally look that big. Apparently my head was pretty large from all the inflammation. She said, no, she doesn't look that big. Could you do another scan, like a CT scan or something? Gratefully, she was a doctor. So they did another CT scan and found a 4.5-inch skull fracture, which did not show up on the x-ray. And they found 5 hemorrhaging sites within my brain. The neurosurgeon comes in the next day or the next day, I don't know. I'm so heavily medicated, I'm in and out, in and out. I was never completely like in a coma, but I was in and out a lot. He comes in and he takes my hand ever so gently, pats it, and says, you have a serious injury. And I said, oh, I wondered why I saw the neurological ICU sign when you were wheeling me in. I thought it was a great place for them to observe me overnight. No idea. So he proceeds to tell me what I just shared with you. And he says, we have to go in and do surgery right away because you have such a high risk of throwing an aneurysm. You will die without this brain surgery. Well, now death was not in my realm of consciousness at the time. So I asked him, I said, what's my best case scenario? He said, best case? Assisted living. 40s. I've got 2 teenage children at home. I have a husband who's totally freaking out on me, which is not what I needed at the time. And they tell me my best case is assisted living. I didn't like that choice, and I told them so. I said, no, when I was in college, I spent a lot of years studying psychology, and I'm here to tell you I am not ready to leave. I am not going to die, and if I did die, if you felt like this, you'd be okay with it too. I'm not going to do it. My husband said, I'll sue you for mental incompetency. And I told him that I wasn't feeling well again because he's not good with the pitching of the cookies, which was nonstop with a head injury. So he skedaddled, and I buzzed a nurse and removed him from my health power of attorney, because that was a very frightening thing to me, because he was doing what he wanted to do for himself and not what we had talked about. And we were one of these couples that talked about this a lot. Neurosurgeon comes in with the nurse, has all these papers, and I said, I'm not going to sign that. I don't want the surgery. He said, why in the world not? I said, because I want to live like I lived before the accident. He said, well, that's impossible. And I said, oh, no. Nothing's impossible. And you, of all people, should know that. I still have my brain. I still have my faculty. Watch me. I'm going to heal myself. So I had a rough and tumble week in ICU, begged them to let me go so I could go home and start my healing process. They said, no. The neurosurgeon said, well, let's do another CT scan. And I said, okay, fine. Give me 2 hours. And make all the nurses and everybody go away. And I'm going to say out loud, I am healthy. I am powerful. I choose to live life on my terms. They wheeled me down for the CT. Came up 2 hours later. The hemorrhaging was slowing down. The neurosurgeon is shocked because that's not the odds that he had panned out for me. And I stand here proudly before you and tell you, I did not have the brain surgery, and I am A-okay. What I learned in the ICU unit is what I'm going to share with you today. What I learned is the power of your words that I studied for years in college. The power of your words has a serious implication to you. How many of you think that you eat relatively healthy, or at least make the sad attempt to? How many of you might even exercise once a week or more? How many of you, when your children start eating fast food, you tell them that's not good for you, you shouldn't eat that so much?
No, I buy it for them.
How many people feed their brains good stuff? Good. How do you know if you're feeding your brain good stuff? So you think you're having a bad day? I would say the day of my head injury was a bad day. What would you say?